June felt as if her entire world was falling apart, piece by piece, when the truth was revealed that Ted, the man she had trusted, the man she had found comfort in after years of loneliness, was the biological father of Martin, the man she had loved, and the father of Samantha and Tyrell. The truth did not come from a raging storm, but from a series of small cracks, whispers, averted glances, and finally the confession of Leslie, the woman who seemed to be just an outsider, but was the most important link in this chain of lies. Leslie's words were like a cold knife, tearing apart the peaceful shell June had tried to build. She felt betrayed not only by Ted but by the people around her, who had remained silent while she went deeper into a relationship that was already cursed from the start. In the first days after learning the truth, June was almost disoriented. She walked the streets of Fairmont Crest like a shadow, hearing the gossip, the snickers behind her, and feeling the contempt and curiosity in the eyes of her neighbors. The community that once respected her now saw her as a vandal, as a woman who had blindly crossed a moral line just to cling to a feeling of being loved. Leslie, who had revealed everything, remained calm, but June knew that deep down, Leslie wanted to bring Ted down, to expose him in front of everyone. The revelation was not just an accident, but a carefully calculated plan, an attack on Ted's honor, and June was just a pawn dragged into that game. Ted, though he tried to appear calm, was crumbling inside. He knew that what he had hidden was starting to backfire, that it was his past decisions that had created the tragedy of the present. When Martin was a child, he chose to keep quiet about his true identity, let Leslie raise the child, and nurture a lie to protect his reputation and his own life. But now everything has turned upside down. The woman he once considered his spiritual support, June, is the one who makes him face his guilt in the most naked way. June knows she can't turn back time, but she still longs to understand, to be forgiven, to hold on to something of the love that once was. She visits Ted many times, not to blame, but to find answers for herself. Why did he let her into his life, knowing all these ties? But the deeper she goes, the more she realizes that Ted has no regrets. There was a strange resignation in his eyes, as if he knew this secret would explode one day, but chose to keep it, for fear of losing his image in the eyes of the community, for fear that the truth would kill what he had built over the decades. Naomi and Jacob, two of June's older friends, saw the tragedy brewing early on. They warned her that what she was pursuing was not love, but the illusion of acceptance, of belonging. Naomi made it clear that all the legal, emotional, and responsibilities between Ted, Martin, and the two children Samantha and Tyrell formed a tangled web that she could not penetrate without causing damage. But June didn't listen. She thought that by holding on to her feelings, she could overcome them all. It was only when Samantha saw her sobbing when she heard that that woman, June, was Martin's real mother and was tearing apart his grandfather's family, that she understood that the wounds she had caused could not be healed by an apology. Fairmont Crest began to shake. Rumors spread quickly, each person adding a little, weaving their own story. Some said June had deliberately seduced Ted to get revenge on Martin. Others said Leslie was jealous and wanted to destroy her rival. But for those involved, the pain was no longer a rumor, it was reality, a burden that weighed on every breath. Martin, when he learned that his biological father was Ted, fell into a state of panic. He felt doubly betrayed by his biological mother who had kept silent for so long, and by the father he had once respected as a mentor who had now hidden the biggest truth of his life from him. Martin's anger was not just the pain of a child, but the collapse of his faith in his family, in the very community he once thought he was attached to. June was caught between two extremes. One side was love and the desire for forgiveness, the other was shame, guilt, and fear. She began to lose sleep, nightmares that made her lose control. She imagined the accusations echoing in her head, the faces of Samantha and Tyrell appearing in the darkness, their eyes full of fear and hatred. Every time she stepped out of the house, she felt the whole of Fairmont Crest watching her, as if she were a symbol of her downfall. Leslie, meanwhile, remained calm, like a winner in a game whose rules only she understood. But deep in Leslie's eyes, there was also a vague regret, because she had not expected her own plan to push everything into the abyss. Ted began to fall into a state of siege. The accusations, the contemptuous looks, and even the threatening calls made him quieter than ever. He understood that his career, his honor, and his family were falling apart every day. But what hurt him most was not the loss, but the realization that despite having loved and protected June, he was the source of the tragedy. Every attempt to protect the one he loved only made everything collapse faster. As night fell, Fairmont Crest was no longer a peaceful place. Inside the closed houses, the lights were a reminder that no secret could be buried forever. June stood by the window, looking at Ted's mansion, filled with mixed emotions: regret, anger, and a deep emptiness. She didn't know what she would do next: leave to find peace, or stay to prove that her love was not a sin. But she knew one thing: in the end, neither of them was the same anymore. What was once a feeling had turned into a burden, and in the game of truth, no one really won. June's arrival not only sparked gossip in the Fairmont Crest community, but also stirred up an undercurrent of rage in Leslie's mind. A woman accustomed to having things her way, Leslie had believed that Ted, though distant, still belonged to her to some extent. Their relationship, though not public, was a vague bond that Leslie viewed as her own privilege. She had accepted Ted's marriage to Nicole because she believed it was a superficial arrangement, a facade to hide what really existed between them. But when June appeared, all that trust shattered like glass. June, without intending to, became a reflection of Leslie's former self, a woman desperate for love, willing to risk everything to seek acceptance. But for Leslie, that reflection evoked not sympathy but only anger. She saw June as a threat, not only to her place at Ted's side, but also to the reputation she had worked so hard to build in the community. She knew full well that Fairmont Crest would never tolerate women who crossed the line, but she was willing to subject June to the full wrath of her own fear. Nicole, Ted's common-law wife, had long been in a lackluster marriage. She had thought Ted was simply tired of work or going through a midlife crisis. But as she noticed the change in his eyes, the long silences in the evenings, and the unusual calls, a vague unease began to creep in. When the first rumors of Ted and June's relationship began to spread, Nicole felt both stunned and frightened. She wasn't just jealous. She felt betrayed at the deepest level by the man she thought would see her through everything, now hiding a truth that could destroy their family. Naomi, the only one of them who had retained her sanity, saw things realistically. She understood the legal, moral, and social consequences June would face if she continued to hang out with Ted. She advised June to stop, insisting that love could not survive in a structure that had been corrupted by wrong relationships. But to June, that advice felt like a cold wall erected between her and her last shred of hope. She knew Naomi was right, but her heart was stubborn, still believing that something could be salvaged, even if it was just a little bit of love, a little bit of humanity amid the lies. Leslie sensed June's struggle and decided to take advantage of it. She began to leak information, spreading half-truths and half-lies to the women in the community club. She told them that June was not only interfering in Ted's life, but also trying to exploit his feelings for his property. Each rumor was like a small fire set on a dry field, and in just a few weeks, the whole Fairmont Crest was engulfed in smoke. Anonymous letters, strange phone calls, malicious looks, all began to fall on June. She became the focus of criticism, the one who was accused of destroying not only a family but also the peace of the community. Nicole, when she learned about the relationship between Ted and June, did not scream or make a fuss as people expected. Instead, she fell into a state of emotional paralysis. She wondered for all these years whether her marriage was real or just a show to hide Ted's secrets. During the long, sleepless nights, she stared at the wedding ring on her hand, feeling it as a burden of duty, no longer a symbol of love. She began to think of revenge, but not in a loud way. She wanted to break Ted from the inside, to make him feel the loss she was suffering at the same time. Leslie continued to manipulate public opinion, playing the role of someone who cared about Nicole, while secretly undermining June. She organized meetings, pretended to sympathize, told the truth in a sweet tone, making the listener believe that she was just a victim of circumstances. But deep down, Leslie was enjoying the feeling of power when she could control the story as she wanted. Every word she said was an invisible knife stabbing into June's honor, making her more and more isolated. June, in the eye of the storm, began to realize that the love she thought was salvation turned out to be the source of tragedy. She lost her job, her friends, and was even kicked out of community gatherings. Her every move was watched, her every decision judged. But what hurt her most was not the alienation, but the realization that she was slowly becoming a version of Leslie herself, resentful, fearful, and ready to fight back for survival. Naomi, in an effort to save June from the abyss, once again insisted that everything could be rebuilt if she chose to let go of Ted. But June was no longer the woman she had been. She felt cornered, where reason and emotion no longer had boundaries. She knew that if she retreated, Leslie would win, and Nicole would see her as a pathetic loser. That fragile pride urged her to fight back, if only to prove that she still had the right to exist in a small community like Fairmont Crest. Rumors spread faster than the truth. Leslie understood that better than anyone, and she used it as a weapon. But just when she believed she had everything under control, a chain of events began to spiral out of control. Ted, under the pressure of public opinion and Nicole's anger, began to lose his way. He withdrew from work, avoided everyone, and fell into a gloomy state. No one knew what he was thinking, but everyone felt that something bad was coming. June tries to stand firm, but her patience is wearing thin. She wonders if she can find peace or if she is just stepping deeper into a never-ending war. As Leslie continues to fan new rumors, as Nicole maintains a cold, calculating silence, and as the Fairmont Crest community waits for the final fall, June realizes that the truth doesn't set anyone free. It only exposes people for who they truly are: selfish, jealous, and weak. On the last night of summer, June stands alone on the steep path leading out of the villa, the yellow light illuminating her weary face. She knows there is nothing left to save. What she once loved is now warped, twisted by words, greed, and fear. But deep down, she still believes that one day, silence will tell this story in a fairer way. No victims, no winners. Only weak people have loved wrongly, believed wrongly, and paid for their choices in an unforgiving world. June's story is not only a personal struggle, but also an exploration of the complex relationships in a small society where every step can be used against her. Her patience in rebuilding things will face Leslie's manipulation and judgment from the community. Will Leslie be able to fan the flames of rumors about June to shatter the trust she is slowly rebuilding? How will Leslie navigate this tension in the community without revealing that she is manipulating? Will June be able to continue to maintain her patience when everything around her is changing? Can she overcome the manipulation, rumors, and betrayal? Or will the truth destroy her? How will June's story end? Will she find peace? Or will she be caught up in the never-ending war between family and community? Will June and Ted's love story work out? Thank you for taking the time to watch my video. All the content I make is just speculation and personal sharing. If you find the video interesting and useful, please support me with a like and leave a comment. If you have better ideas or more interesting speculations, please share them in the comments section for everyone to discuss. I appreciate all your contributions and support. Sincerely, thank you.